I couldn't justify lending money to an incompetent craftsman drowning in debt. He owed $500, and the full amount was due by the end of the month. That's when Wilson, a new loan officer, walked into my office. "I've been in this business for 35 years, she said abruptly, demanding full repayment. "Lending money to an office on the brink of financial collapse isn't wise. You better pay it all back while you still can," she added, her tone sharp and dismissive. Her arrogance infuriated me. "Fine, I'll repay the $500, in full," I snapped, my voice tight with anger. "But you'll regret this," I muttered under my breath. Wilson, clearly amused, burst into laughter. "You regret a washed-up banker like you," she scoffed, unfazed by her mockery. I silently resolved to show her who would truly regret this encounter. My name is Smith, and at 60 years old, I'm still active as a gardener. I began working at Smith Landscape Design 35 years ago, under my father's management. Over time, I honed my craft, mastering the artistry of gardening. When my father fell ill with stomach cancer, I took over as president a decade ago. The landscaping business had changed. Fewer homes had gardens, and condos were on the rise, but quitting never crossed my mind. Even as business slowed, we persevered. Many of our competitors closed shop, leaving us with a more loyal customer base. Our clients, mostly elderly homeowners, valued our work since they couldn't tend to their gardens anymore. I was determined to continue running the company, hoping to pass it on to my children someday. Then came the day Brown, our longtime loan officers, visited. "I'm retiring," Brown said kindly, introducing Wilson as his replacement. Wilson, a woman in her 20s, barely acknowledged my greeting, as Brown tried to make polite conversation. Wilson remained aloof. Later, when she came back alone, she was even more brusque. "Hi, I'm Wilson from Trust Bank. My boss told me to meet our clients, so here I am," she said flatly. I couldn't believe her lack of professionalism. "Thanks for coming," I replied, forcing a smile. She glared at me. "What's with that tone? Are you saying I shouldn't have bothered?" she snapped. "No, I just meant it's unusual to hear someone admit they're only here because their boss told them to be," I answered, irritated by her attitude. Wilson cut me off. "I don't have time for this," she said sharply before storming out. In all my years, I had never encountered such rudeness. A week later, she returned, visibly furious. "You apologize to me right now," she demanded. "If you do, I won't involve the police." "I'm sorry, what are you talking about?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Don't play dumb. Someone from your company conned my grandmother out of $100, for fake garden maintenance," she accused. I was shocked by the allegation. "We only accept cash payments after services are rendered. Do you have any proof?" I asked. "Proof?" My grandmother said. "A man named Williams from your company scammed her. You need to take responsibility," Wilson retorted. I assured her there was no employee by that name. After checking the records, I calmly said, "We don't employ anyone named Williams." Wilson's eyes narrowed. "So, you're just going to deny it? Fine, I'll find another way to deal with this." Her threat left me unsettled, but I pushed it aside. Days later, Wilson returned with a final ultimatum. "I can't keep lending money to a failing craftsman buried in debt. You'll need to repay the $500, by the end of this month," she demanded, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. I kept my cool. "Why do you believe we're in financial trouble? And why is the full repayment due now?" She smirked. "Because your business is going under. There's no demand for landscapers anymore. You're better off repaying the debt while you still can." Then she leaned in and whispered, "Of course, if you repay the $500, 5 times what my grandmother lost, he might forget all about it." Her audacity made my blood boil. "Fine," I said through clenched teeth. "I'll pay it back in full, but you'll regret this." Wilson laughed. "We'll see who regrets it, old lady. Can you even afford that?" Ignoring her taunts, I vowed to outsmart her. Tomorrow, I would call the bank and make sure Wilson's demands were dealt with properly. Retaliation was coming. "Hello, this is Smith. Thank you for your continued support. I'd like to ask if you could have loan officers." Wilson stopped visiting my office. "Her behavior is becoming disruptive." The representative on the other end sounded concerned. "I'm very sorry to hear that. I'll inform the branch manager, and he'll head over to your office immediately." As she apologized, I overheard a voice in the background whisper, "Her again. How many times has this happened now?" It became clear Wilson was causing trouble for other clients as well. When I stepped outside, I found Wilson already waiting for me. "There you are. Hiding won't help. If you don't want the police involved, sign these papers now, she snapped, shoving termination documents for a loan agreement in my direction. I remained calm. Is this an official decision from the bank, or just yours? I asked. My opinion is the bank's opinion. Anyway, a fraud like you doesn't get to complain. Just sign it, Wilson snarled. I just spoke to the bank. The branch manager is on his way, and I'll sign when he gets here, I replied firmly. Wilson's face went pale. What? Why did you call the bank? I thought you were avoiding me by staying in your office. I looked her in the eye. When did I ever say I was avoiding you? Visibly shaken, Wilson seemed at a loss for words. Just then, a bicycle rolled up behind her, and the branch manager stepped off, his face lined with worry. I gestured for him to come inside, and he guided Wilson toward the reception area, her confidence visibly shaken. I sincerely apologize for the unacceptable behavior of our staff member, Wilson, the branch manager said politely, turning sharply toward her. How could you treat one of our most valued customers, who has always supported the bank, like this? Wilson, unfazed by the reprimand, protested. But this person is a fraud. She scammed $100,000 from my grandmother. Despite the manager's attempts to calm her down, Wilson persisted in painting me as the villain. I calmly explained the situation to the branch manager, who turned to Wilson. If your grandmother had truly been scammed, would you confront that alleged scammer directly? Wouldn't your first step be to report it to the police? The question hung in the air, and I could sense the manager's words getting through to Wilson. In such a distraught state, could you really handle it so calmly? I thought to myself, though I knew the answer should be obvious. The manager pressed on, noting Wilson's attitude. If you review the records, you'll see that Smith is one of our trusted clients. Furthermore, there's no one named Williams employed by Smith Landscape Design. It's likely that an outsider pretended to be an employee and contacted your grandmother. Wilson's face tightened as she finally grasped the possibility of a scam by an outsider. We confirmed her grandmother's details and found no landscaping work had ever been requested. In fact, she lived in public housing, where we wouldn't even conduct any work unless specifically requested by the local authorities. Shouldn't the first step be to report this to the police? I interjected. Wilson flinched, her eyes nervously flicking to the branch manager. It's ironic, I added, that you're making such a fuss over a $100,000 scam but act as if terminating a $500,000 loan is no big deal. Wilson's defiance seemed to waver as she realized her position was crumbling. Wilson, the manager said, his tone stern, despite your education, you failed to follow basic protocol like consulting with me before making such rash decisions. Your behavior disqualifies you from continuing in this role. We will be taking strict disciplinary action. With that, the manager turned back to me, apologizing profusely before escorting Wilson out of the office, practically pulling her along. As I watched them leave, I reflected on my long-standing relationship with the bank. Our company wasn't in financial trouble. We'd mainly taken out loans to maintain a good relationship with the bank. My father, who founded Smith Landscape Design, had taught me the importance of building trust with banks. He often said, banks have lending targets, and they're more likely to help when you have a history of repayment, even if you don't need the money immediately. But Wilson's behavior had crossed a line. Despite the branch manager's efforts, it was clear that our trust with the bank had been severely damaged. After discussing it with my family, I made a decision. The next day, I visited the bank. They'd been informed of my arrival, and both the branch manager and Wilson greeted me politely. Their faces were bowed in apology, but I didn't mince words. Regarding the loan, it's fine to terminate it. We haven't drawn from it yet, and we'll repay it immediately. The branch manager's expression shifted to alarm. Mr. Smith, please don't feel pressured about the loan. We value our long relationship with you, and I hope we can continue to work together. But my decision was final. If I hadn't intervened, Wilson would still be coming to my office, behaving disrespectfully. I can't trust a bank that allows such behavior. I'm sorry, but I have to end our business relationship. The manager looked desperate. I truly apologize for what happened. We'll take immediate action, and I assure you nothing like this will happen again. Please reconsider staying with us. No matter what you say, my decision won't change, I replied, standing firm as the branch manager's pleas faded into the background. As the branch manager prepared to leave the reception room, the door suddenly flew open, and a visibly shaken bank employee hurried in. Excuse me, I must go, the manager said abruptly. Concern etched on his face as he rushed out. From outside the room, An agitated woman's voice could be heard, growing louder. When I visited your bank, a banker named Wilson told me, "We don't lend money to the incompetent." "What kind of training do you give your bankers?" she demanded angrily. The manager's reaction confirmed my suspicion he wasn't the only one affected by Wilson's behavior. He started to respond. But trailed off, his eyes shifting toward Wilson, who stood biting her nails nervously, muttering under her breath. Without hesitation, the manager marched up to her and said, "You're fired, effective immediately. Get out now," pointing to the door. Wilson's face turned ashen with shock. For a moment, she stood frowning, and then, her demeanor changed as she desperately pleaded, "Please, don't fire me, I'm begging you." But her hollow apology did little to sway the situation. I watched the scene unfold, troubled by the thought of how many other businesses might have suffered because of her. "It's fortunate for us that we didn't rely on the loan," I muttered, "but other businesses must have been seriously impacted." The branch manager's frustration was palpable. "Do you have any idea how many valued customers we've lost because of you? Dismissing you is the only option," he stated firmly. Their argument dragged on, but seeing no point in lingering any longer, I stood up and addressed Wilson directly one last time. "Remember when you told me I wouldn't regret it? Well, this is the outcome. You've brought this on yourself," I said calmly, watching as Wilson crumbled in despair. Later, the branch manager returned to inform me that Wilson had been officially dismissed. He once again apologized and pleaded for another chance to salvage our business relationship, but I remained resolute. Wilson's disgraceful conduct and the bank's failure to act earlier were enough to convince me that severing ties was the right decision. Sometime later, while driving through the city, I happened to notice a woman resembling Wilson working as a traffic guard at a construction site. Her skin was tanned from the sun, and she was sweating heavily in her new role. I was almost certain it was her once elite banker, now performing menial labor. I hoped that perhaps this new reality will lead her to reflect on her actions. Meanwhile, our business continued to thrive. We secured a major contract for landscaping work at the park that had replaced the bank's former location. Seeing our Smith Landscape design truck parked at the site brought us new clients, including requests for maintenance services at condominiums and apartment complexes. By adapting to the very needs of our customers, we ensure the continued success of our gardening business. I remain committed to supporting the community and growing our business, grateful that we have moved on from the turmoil caused by Wilson and the bank's shortcomings.